We do want to show you that flight path again. And I want to pull this up because I think this is important to show you just the geography here. You have Reagan on one side. As we zoom in, we're going to get you situated right there. So Reagan would be on the left side of your screen. And then on the right side would be Joint Base Anacostia Bowling. So for those who may be unfamiliar, who were perhaps wondering why would a Black Hawk be in this area? Well, it is not uncommon, especially if you live in this area for a number of years, to see a lot of these training missions happen at all hours in the day, in the night as well. So we know that Joint Base Anacostia Bowling is right there, and then you have geographically right across the river, you have Reagan National Airport. So that would explain why they're within the vicinity. But the key question is going to be, what about all that flight awareness technology that should have alerted the pilots that these two planes were too close together? A lot of unanswered questions, and that investigation is not even close to starting because they're in the search and rescue mode. Okay, we're going to take that down and again look at the live images as we take another view of the scene there. And it is going to be a long night. We heard from our Carl Willis, who told us that he is in a room at Reagan National Airport where a number of agencies are gathering right now. The NTSB and the FAA, they're going to be the lead on this investigation. They're likely only going to be able to give us preliminary information, that being the type of aircraft, any initial warnings or communications that they had with any of the pilots. So that is what we would likely hear from that news conference. It can take months for an investigation of this magnitude to be complete. We're getting some new information in right now. WMATA is now weighing in. The transit system has sent warming buses that is, to support rescue. We are working to assist Dulles Airport, this is a statement that I'm reading, with diverted flights by running extra Silver Line trains and to keep Silver open later to get people downtown. So this is having ripple effects for all forms of transportation in our area, and WMATA expressing the ways in which they are helping people navigate what is just a tremendous undertaking for those rescuers who are out there in the water right now. We have a new statement now that we want to get to. We want to show you more images. This looks like a new camera angle that we're able to show, and you can't exactly make out what is happening right there, but you can see the boats in the water, and it appears, okay, this camera is live. This camera is live. Let's go to a different camera. This one is a wider view, and I believe this is looking over the airport. And we should remind folks, if they were anticipating someone coming into town or taking off, there's a ground stop right now at Reagan National Airport, so it is going to be a while before the airport opens back up. We likely will get an update on that information when that news conference happens. So this is an unfolding situation where we don't have a lot of information to go to, but we do know that a lot of people heard and saw something tonight that right away they took to social media to share some of that. We're getting more reaction that is coming in. We have reaction now from Senator Ted Cruz. He is among those sharing his thoughts on social media, saying he is closely monitoring the situation at DCA. He will be receiving a briefing from the FAA tomorrow. And then we have some video. Do we have that for us? Is that ready? Okay, we're working on turning that video around. We want to remind our folks that are watching and joining us tonight that we have a team of reporters not only at the scene but working behind the scene to gather this information as it comes in through social media and different statements from lawmakers as well as those working this investigation. So this is really a team effort night where we are tapping into all of our resources to bring you the latest on this breaking news. Our VJ, our chief meteorologist, Veronica Johnson, is standing by because we were talking earlier, VJ, it doesn't appear that weather conditions in the terms of visibility and wind conditions were a factor, but you're focused on water temperature.
That's right. I'm focused on what's happening in the water. Of course, 35 degrees, that water temperature. It's really low, much lower than the actual air temperature. We're still in the lower 40s across the area, but the water temperature is at 35 degrees, of course, right in this area. So there's your perspective, Maryland, as well as D.C. We'll zoom right on in really tight to show you Reagan National there. So we're talking about this area right here in the Potomac. There's your runway, and that is the point in the water where the aircraft is in the water. And when you look at the amount of time that has passed since the aircraft went down, I mean, with hypothermia here, with a water temperature at 35 degrees, when it's less than 3 minutes with no protective clothing, you start to lose dexterity. And when you're looking at somewhere between 15 and 30 minutes of being in the water, folks can easily go unconscious. So the rescue crews, they're really racing up against time to get to folks as quickly as possible. But again, that water temperature now at 35 degrees. And we mentioned it was a day with clear skies out there. You can see some of the activity there in the distance. So we're in the 40s with the actual air temperature, 48 degrees. But the winds right now are fairly light, Michelle, out of the west-northwest at just 10 miles per hour, so down from those gusts that we had earlier today. But again, the water temperature is 35 degrees, so folks start to lose unconsciousness at 15 to 30 minutes. And unfortunately, there's been quite some time that has passed since we've seen those images of the aircraft collide and go into the water.
All right, VJ, thank you for that important information in terms of the perspective on the weather conditions. We want to go to our other camera angle. This is of Dangerfield Park or Island. This is a lookout point, a favorite for many people in the area, because on a beautiful day, it is a good view of watching the planes land at Reagan Airport, which is just across the river. You have a perfect line of sight for the airport and seeing those planes touch down and take off. And you can see that it is now a gathering point for people in the media and others to take in what is unfolding tonight. If you are just joining us as we are just beyond the half-hour mark of 10:30, I want to loop you in on what we are tracking here and run through the details of what we know so far. A regional plane has collided with a Black Hawk helicopter near Reagan National Airport. We know that flight was an American Eagle regional jet that was coming in from Wichita, Kansas. A plane like that has the capacity of about 65 people. Right now, it's unclear how many people were on board that plane. We are awaiting a news conference right now from the FAA, NTSB, and several other agencies, local and national, that are a part of this investigation right now. We can also tell you that there is a ground stop at Reagan National Airport as they try to, at this point, search for potential victims. There's an active water search that is happening. Conditions out there not the best for something like this. Obviously, VJ mentioned the water temperatures, but it also being nighttime adds another layer of challenges for those rescuers who are there. And this is a response that we're seeing from agencies. We're seeing a response from agencies all across the region, DC, Fairfax. This is an all hands on deck situation where as many people as they can pull into this investigation are involved. So we have a picture that we're now losing. So let's take another camera view. And this one sort of shows you just the vast amount of police and ambulances that are responding to this. This is something that we haven't seen in quite some time, a plane crash in our area. The last time that we had a crash near the Potomac River or in the Potomac River was back in 1982. That was also in the month of January, very frigid conditions. In fact, the Potomac was iced over. In that tragedy, we know several people died. There were some survivors. We are waiting to find out if there are any casualties tonight. We simply do not know. We're also waiting to hear the human side of the story, which is those who have loved ones on that flight who presumably were waiting for them to land at the airport. We are working together that angle of the story for you as well. As we look at the clock, it is now 10:37. We are awaiting a news conference from those agencies. Let's go back to one of our reporters. If we have Carl Willis standing by, I know he was in that room awaiting that news conference. If we can get to him to give us an update. Okay, let me switch gears. And we have on the phone, as we look at this live picture, our meteorologist, Steve Rudin. Steve, thanks for joining us on the phone. Tell me what you heard or saw when this all unfolded at around 9 o'clock tonight.
Alrighty, so I was at home and I live in Old Town Alexandria, and I didn't hear anything. However, at around, I'd say, I can't remember, but a little bit after 9, just a ton of fire trucks, a constant parade of fire trucks. I could hear them going down North Washington, heading down toward the GW Parkway, and police cars, ambulances. And at that point, I went online and I started to look around. I went to Flight Radar and I saw a bunch of choppers circling around an area, and that's where I am right now. I'm at Dangerfield Island, which is almost directly across the river from where it appears this incident happened. There are probably, I would say, at least 300 or more people here right now, a lot of news crews. The vantage point shows 3 very distinct areas of flashing rescue lights, ranging from Reagan National Airport to across the river over on the D.C., Maryland side. And you can still hear, up until about, a steady stream of rescue squads going toward the airport. It's now quieter right now, but I am counting 1, 2, 3 choppers in the air right now, still doing searches that are over the water. I should make one other note that earlier today, we had wind gusts upwards of 30 to 40 miles per hour. It is nearly calm here right now. So those winds are not a problem, but these waters, as Veronica was mentioning, very, very cold. Parts of the Potomac recently, as a couple of days ago, had a sheet of ice on it. Where I am right now, the vantage point, it is not icy. However, the water temperatures are very, very cold.
Yeah, we were looking at temperatures around 35 degrees for that water temperature, so certainly frigid. Can you tell us, Steve, in terms of where you are, if you're able to see if the posture has changed? I know you've been out there kind of looking at the situation for some time now. Are you seeing more vehicles respond in terms of emergency vehicles, or are you seeing them shift to a different direction?
Well, right now I'm hearing yet another round of sirens, emergency vehicles, and you can literally, I mean, if you pan the river, I'm at Dangerfield Island. For those of you who don't know where that is, it's right off the GW Parkway, just to the north of Old Town Alexandria, and I have a direct view right now of the control tower at Reagan National to the Washington Monument, the U.S. Capitol Dome. So from the Capitol Dome on is a steady stream of flashing red and blue lights. There's a little bit of break where the water is, another band of lights, which looks like it's more across the river. Perhaps that's where they're searching. And then there's 2 more clumps of lights. So I don't know how big this area is. We know that we saw the big flash in the video, that it happened above the surface. I don't know how high it was, and I don't know how far the debris may have spread, but there are lots and lots of people. Search helicopters continue. Once again, I'm counting 1, 2, 3 choppers right now that are in the air, and I can't even count how many rescue vehicles just by their flashing lights. There are just so many.
What about in the water? Are you seeing rescue boats in the water? We saw that earlier, but has that changed?
So from my vantage point here across the river, it does appear that there's clumps. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 clumps of rescue squads. I can't tell from this vantage point which ones are actually on the water or not. However, there's a very steady stream, and the choppers now seem to be going a little bit farther to the south in a location. I don't know what is happening over there, but there's also a lot of flashing lights in that one clump of rescue vehicles, and it's sort of separated from the rest of them. So I don't know what's going on in that smaller area, but then you can look around the perimeter over toward Reagan National, and you can see just a search and rescue effort that I've not seen around here, my goodness, in a long, long time.
Absolutely. And you said about 3, how many aircraft in terms of helicopters you see circling now?
Right now I'm counting 3, and they're all at varying heights. and they seem to be scanning. I mean, they're sort of moving in a. I mean, I imagine there's some sequence in which they're moving, but they're definitely covering a pretty broad area of the river that is just to the south of Reagan National.
And Steve, not to put you on the spot, but I know one of your side hobbies is just fascination with aircraft. Do you have anything to add on that front?
No, I mean, American Eagle, I mean, they've been around a long time. They're a subsidiary of American Airlines, and these planes, these commuter planes, we think of these commuter planes from way back when with propellers and whatnot, but they're regional jets in essence. I don't know the exact type of plane this is. However, they hold quite a few people, and I think at one point, I don't want to even speculate how many people the plane holds, because I don't know what kind of plane it is, but some of these planes can hold upwards of 75 people. So they're not these small 25-seat planes that we're accustomed to seeing or remember seeing back in the day.
Yeah, you're right about that. This one, we understand, holds about 65 people, but you're right, as you pointed out, we don't know how many passengers were on board this flight. Steve, thank you so much for adding your perspective to all of this. We're going to come back to you later tonight, because we're going to be on top of the story all evening. Steve, thank you. Steve Rudin standing by from Dangerfield Island for us. We want to bring in our Chief Meteorologist, Veronica Johnson, now. And you've been looking at water temperatures. What more can you tell us about the conditions out there in the Potomac?
Right, so holding at 35 degrees right now. Haven't seen any change with that, but that still is a very low water temperature. Winds out of the northwest. They'll start looking at the water currents, which way everything is flowing. Right now it's a northwesterly wind, so that will be, I'm going to switch over to one of the maps here to zoom right on down to Reagan National here. If we can take the map for maybe a split second there on the other side. So we'll look at the winds northwest to southeast, so that water current will be more from north to south, allowing things to kind of flow, south out of the Potomac. But the water temperature, that's what is so critical, of course, running at 35 degrees. And what I mentioned earlier is that at 35 degrees, there's so much that just happens with the human body, right? You see at 35 degrees, under 3 minutes, that loss of dexterity. These folks on the plane, of course, without any gear on. Right?
Yeah, I mean, you would hope that we don't know how much time they had to prepare, if any of the vests or things like that you're often told to do in case of an emergency when you have these instructional videos before a flight takes off. But you're right, no one wants to be in those type of conditions because there is a significant risk of hypothermia, as you point out right there.
That's right, and just at 35 degrees, between that 15 and 30-minute pocket, folks start to lose unconsciousness being in the water. You lose awareness, unconsciousness, but like you said, we don't know what kind of time folks had to prepare before this happened. In the dark, you mentioned the plane crash in '82 in January. That really was weather-related as well, with ice on the wings of the plane. In this instance, we've got less ice in the water, but at least the winds were light by this time this evening.
That's right.
Right. So winds were light, clear skies across the area, so we really don't know the factors that led to this incident this evening.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many questions about how this all unfolded because of all the technology on board these aircraft, especially the Black Hawk, that should have alerted them that they are too close in proximity to another aircraft. Our Carl Willis is standing by. Stay close, VJ. We're going to come back to you. Our Carl Willis is standing by, and he is at the airport where we're expecting an update. It looks like you changed locations. Carl, it looks like you're at baggage claim. Are you seeing families there? What's happening?
No, Michelle, we actually just turned right around here. We're in Reagan National Airport. As you can see now, I'm in Terminal 1 near the Frontier check-in ticketing line, actually. This is where Reagan National, the officials here, informed media to come for the briefings. This will be, hopefully, where we get the latest information from officials here at Reagan National, where, again, all takeoffs and landings have been suspended as this investigation goes on. This is not the primary focus right now, but I can tell you there are 19 delays and 7 cancellations. That does affect a few people as this happens right out the window. If you look across the way here, you can see some of the flashing lights, the fire response that's happening so nearby here. Again, this is a quiet corner of the terminal, but out there you can imagine the energy that's being exerted trying to rescue and find whoever was on these flights. Again, this was an American Eagle flight that was coming from Wichita, Kansas, that crashed on descent, on arrival here, coming to runway 33 at Reagan National Airport. Again, MPD, along with DC Fire and EMS, they are working on that search and recovery and rescue, hopefully at this point. PSA Airlines flight, a Bombardier, a regional jet, that collided with a Sikorsky H-60 helicopter, a military helicopter, what we've been told, on trying to, the flight that was trying to land here at DCA. So again, if we turn back around here, we can tell you that this is a staging area right now where hopefully we haven't been given an ETA exactly when this briefing is going to happen, but we can take it as soon as that happens. Again, we are in the ticketing section inside Terminal 1 and awaiting the very latest information on this tragic crash. Michelle.
All right, Carl, I have a couple of questions for you. I know you are standing by for that news conference, but if you can tell me, I would imagine with this ground stop, have those other flights that were scheduled for this evening, are they canceled and are folks leaving?
There are a number of delays, so 7 have been canceled, 19 are still in delay status right now, but with the extent of this investigation, you can imagine that's going to go on throughout the night. So it's unclear whether those flights that have been delayed will eventually be canceled. Again, that is affecting 19 different flights at this point, so that is something certainly to watch. But again, of course, all the focus is on that rescue mission that's happening on the Potomac right now.
Our Carl Willis live for us at Reagan National Airport, standing by for that news conference from the NTSB as well as the FAA. Carl, thank you. We want to go now to our, let's see, control room. Dave Lucas, we have our former anchor on the line. Dave, it feels like I just talked to you. I think I did earlier tonight. Yeah. Who knew that this would be unfolding just a short time later? Dave, what can you tell us? I know in terms of just perspective, we were referring to that 1982 crash, and that's the last time we all really recall an event like this where there's a water rescue after an aircraft went down. How are you seeing the details so far? I know you were looking at some of those social media videos.
That and many other reports. Obviously, this is the big story across the country right now, and I wish we were doing this on a happier note, but unfortunately, we're not. One thing I do see, though, is the parallels between this and that January 13th, 1982 Air Florida crash, which happened. It's worth remembering during a snowstorm. The flight had been delayed for hours. It sat on the runway. It was de-iced by, if memory serves, maybe 1 or 2 times, but clearly not enough. As soon as the pilot took off, he realized that there was a problem, and the plane flew into the 14th Street Bridge. It happened during daylight, and so that's the difference between this flight. 74 on board, and I believe only 5 or 6 survived, including that one iconic picture of a member of the flight crew being pulled out of the water, obviously in great distress. It was a terrible thing. A very good friend of mine who was working for Channel 7 at the time as a photographer, George Patterson. He and Chester Panzer were the first 2 on the scene of that. And that long ago, that's something that George still doesn't like to talk about. One thing we should talk about, though, is as a result, almost directly of that flight, the impetus to develop what's known as the TCAS system, which is the in-flight radar, if you will. In our cars, we have things that tell us when we're following too close. Well, that's the analogy I can make to the TCAS. It's when planes are close together or on a potential collision course, they're warned to break off and to move in other directions. TCAS was a direct result of that Air Florida crash back in 1982. Obviously, in the years of crash reconstruction that this is going to take, yes, we'll hear from the NTSB tonight, but this is only the very, very beginning of what will be a long and I trust exhaustive examination of what happened, how these two aircraft in what is very busy airspace at the very least. Turns out that National is the 24th busiest airport in the country, but even so, at night and when you have these different kinds of aircraft at different altitudes and areas of flight, how it's possible, even with the best systems, to have just a horrible accident like this. And we've seen the video now, and there's no question that the two planes, two aircraft collided, and that the bigger of the two, the one flight, the fixed wing aircraft, went right into the water. Hard to tell what happened to the helicopter, but you have to presume that it did too, and that's why there is such a focus. Now, I will say, and these are just reports, but they are from credible news organizations, that there have been people pulled from the river, but they're described as bodies, which would indicate that they were not survivors. We hope against hope that there will be some, as there were in that Air Florida flight. But right now, as VJ told us earlier, with the water being as cold as it is right now, there is that very small window where you have to get people who might be otherwise medically compromised, perhaps unconscious, maybe not even breathing. You have to get them out of the river and try and immediately warm them up and see if you can't get them saved. There are so many aspects to this, and we're going to be talking about this and reporting on this, not just for days or weeks or months, but likely for years as well. Again, because I say this harkens back to that January 13th, 1982 Air Florida crash.
Yeah, and while you were speaking, Dave, we brought up that graphic that VJ created, because you're right, talking about the urgency that is required for a search like this. We know WMATA is sending those warming buses, but as you mentioned, the water temperature is so critical right now.
Right. The point we're really, I mean, it's a very, very short amount of time to get to the people that are in the water. And, you know, this happened, what was the time that was recorded on this?
9 o'clock is when
9
they reported.
o'clock. So unfortunately, we're past that. You know, 30 minutes, up to 30 minutes where folks start to lose unconsciousness, well-being. So folks, you know, it could be that, you know, they may be underwater. Unfortunately, you know, we hope that's not the case. One of the things we talked about too when Dave was speaking was that as this continues, this rescue effort, is that the winds are going to stay relatively light. Skies in the morning should be mainly clear, so we're not talking about any rain here that's going to come with this rescue effort. It's going to be clear skies, light winds for them. Temperatures in the morning that'll be around 37, 38 degrees, the actual air temp, and that means the water temperature could drop a few more degrees as well. We're at 35 degrees right now, so by morning that water temperature could be around 33 degrees.
What can you tell us about the force of the water current? Because a lot of times we see the Potomac River in images like this, and sometimes it can appear still, but it is a very forceful river.
It is, right. In big bodies of water, you can see that current move much easier. Right now, the winds are out of the northwest, and even though they're relatively light at about 5 to 10 miles per hour right now, it's still a current that would carry anything from north to south out of the Potomac, so more away from the area, of course, where the incident took place. I think that search will start to broaden by morning, certainly throughout the day tomorrow. But again, again, I like that we don't have any weather that's going to be moving in anytime soon. Rain, of course, in the forecast for tomorrow, but it's not going to be till late tomorrow around 10 to 11 p.m.
Okay.
And temperatures tomorrow afternoon should be in the 50s. Relatively quiet day to continue that rescue effort. But yes, current right now we're looking at that along with the water temperatures that are just so low coming after a week of actual air temperatures that were in the 20s. You know, for those of us that make our way into work here, we know that the Potomac was iced over considerably more than we've seen it in quite some time. Just last week, before we got this little warm up.
Well, that's certainly favorable to hear that we don't have any serious weather moving in at least the next 24 hours. We have our Natalie Spala. She is at Dangerfield Park. Natalie, tell us what you're seeing where you are.
Yeah, Michelle, I can offer only perspective what is going on here at Dangerfield Park. I mean, this is a very active scene in terms of people who are curious about what's going on. Right now it is relatively quiet, and it's eerily quiet because all you can hear right now are a few small conversations taking place between people and then the buzz of the choppers going on around the Potomac. And right now there's no crews here, nothing in that regard, no fire, EMS, very quiet, very still. A lot of people just curious about what's going on. The marina is packed right now. I see cars circling the parking lot. A lot of people trying to find a parking spot just to get a sense of what's going on here. But again, the sense is very eerie, very dark. A lot of people are very quiet, but again, just curious about what's going on. I want to step out of the way though, just so you can get a sense of what the scene is that people are taking in. And again, very quiet, very dark over here, but a lot of people, I'd say easily more than 100 people here right now, just very quiet, taking in the scene. And again, you see all the lights on the other side of the Potomac. Nothing in that regard going on, but you can hear that chopper, the buzzing of the chopper. It's very eerie, like I mentioned, but right now I can count 1, 2. That's pretty much it in terms of choppers in the air right now. Lots of lights, though, on the other side of the Potomac, just kind of adding to this scene. But right now I've spoken to a few people, some of them, or most of them actually, from the area close by where we are here at Dangerfield Park. They didn't see anything, didn't hear anything, but a lot of people were able to see this on the news, saw it on Facebook, wanted to come out here and see. And I also did speak with a few people who do live in the area very close by, and they did mention that there has been a lot of activity in the air, especially in these last few days. Noises, images, just a lot of helicopters and airplanes, and that's pretty typical for this area right around DCA. But some people also did mention that they believe it was an increased presence in those aircraft within the last few days. So once again, a lot of people out here, cameras, TV crews, everyone wants to get a sense of what's going on. But again, like I mentioned, very quiet. A lot of people just curious and wanted to see that for themselves. Michelle?
Natalie, thank you for that report. Yeah, this is a story gaining national attention. Right now, we know that a lot of folks first hearing about this on social media. We saw some of those first images of the impact of the big blast in the sky, and that all caught our attention. Standing by right now is our John Rogers. He's at the alert desk checking some of the latest information. Okay, we're going to get to John in just a moment.
All right, Michelle, thank you. So we're just learning just moments ago more about this helicopter. We're told that this Black Hawk that collided with the plane had 3 soldiers on board and was coming from Fort Belvoir and was not carrying any VIPs. As we all know, it's very common to see these choppers flying above the Potomac. It often is used for travel in the D.C. area. So again, the Army has confirmed that this had come from Fort Belvoir. In the meantime, as you had mentioned, Michelle, all over social media, people were sharing these chilling images where you can see the flash, and in a moment you see a little zoom in here where you can see the what appears to be the collision caught on a CCTV camera, this pointing from the Kennedy Center. Very awful to see that. Many people on social media sharing these chilling images, including this, where you see the flight path from the plane as it's headed toward DCA, flying over the Potomac, and then sadly, the plane never fully arrives to the runway. The image here from flight radar has it stopping right there in the middle of the Potomac. The FAA, as we already know, has been putting up posts providing what little information they can at the moment on this latest in the situation. American Airlines confirming this